Hello, Transformers fans, and it has finally come down to the comparison video for the Perfect Effect and the Transform DreamWave upgrade kits for Volcanicus. Alrighty, and I will just bring them out. There's the Perfect Effect. And here's the Transform DreamWave. Oop. There we go. And I know it looks like the Perfect Effect is actually humongously taller. This guy's just standing a little bit further into the background. It's not a huge difference at all, because the top of his horns comes to right there. I mean, it is literally like the difference between these. I wish I had something flat, but I don't have anything flat. But the one thing I do have flat is way too long. But yeah, I mean, it's literally only like maybe a half an inch or less difference in height. So it's not a humongous difference. It's just a small difference in height. Just because his legs happen to come a little bit further down because of the hip upgrades. And that's about it. So it's really only about like a half an inch for this kit, sitting shorter than the Perfect Effect. So, but as we can see here, Swoop, I'm using Swoop as the right arm for both. I got Sludge as the left arm for the Transform DreamWave kit, and then I got Slag as the left arm for the Perfect Effect kit, and that is just because you can't really use Sludge as a leg with this kit because the head doesn't come out far enough. That's why they are reversed. So, but as we look in here, take a closer look at the chest for the Perfect Effect. I have both heads sitting flat. That way, it's an easier comparison when doing this. But we can always leave it up because then that reveals that little bit of molding there, and then that reveals the little bit of molding right down there. Me personally, it seems more like Grimlock himself will end up opening up his mouth and he can talk. But it is meant so that way you could go like this and you could have, the Prime Master just chilling in there. But I don't really feel like doing that, and sorry that my arm is so close into the camera. But as you can see, the designs right there, and the color of the chest, the shape of it, and then Transform DreamWave. Okay, now both chest pieces are actually pretty cool. This one actually has a little bit more intricate design work molded in. And yes, once again, I haven't done anything with getting the black paint over here. But And this one does have a little bit more of a color combo with the gold and the silver and the black instead of just the gold and the red on this one. They both go fairly on easy. And they both look cool. Now both of these pieces in dyno mode pretty much have the same kind of playability. I mean, one does look a little bit weirder than the other, but it, you know, comes down to, you know, if you are enjoying your kit the way you want to enjoy it. Same thing goes for the feet and every other piece that actually happens to come with this. So we're going to be taking a look next at the new crotch plates and the new butt plates or rear end plates. So, I mean, obviously we got the perfect effect here with the gray plastic and the gold detailing up in here, and then some of the silver paint. And then you have the cockpit for the dyno mode, so that way you can get your Titan Master, Prime Master sitting in there, driving Grimlock around. You know, smashing into things is if, you know, Grimlock actually needs help smashing into anything without any extra help. You know, he's a dinosaur. It's just his nature. Alright, and then we will cruise on over to this one. And yes, this one is a fairly bit more simple, but once again, the has a little bit more intricate, molded in detail. A little bit less paint here. You just get the red, and then you know you get the one thing of gold right in there. You could always paint these little spots gold yourself, or you can even put some of the silver to kind of help match that. And then there is that little bit of like dark gunmetal gray, or it's either black. So I mean, it is definitely not as wide as the perfect effect, as you can actually see here. And I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, if you didn't want to keep the original combined hands on the sides, I guess you could always just, you know, like cut that knob off on either side of the crotch plate if you really wanted to, if you don't plan on using him for anything other than combine mode. You know, once again, it's up to you. It's your kit. I mean, this one, it makes him big and beefier up at the top, and makes him have the thinner, more, I guess, realistic sized waist. And they're just going here for that big and beefier all the way around. So I guess they felt the need that because he's dinosaur, he needs to be big around the middle as well as up top. Alright, let's turn them around. Okay, so after the new rear plate, we're going to be taking a look at the back pieces so we can get that effect. Alright, so yeah, this is the new rear plate for perfect effect, and as you notice, it's painted silver, kind of a way as like matching. I mean, that's the original combined mode crotch plate right there. So I mean, we have the original red and the original silver with the little bit of gold in there, and this is essentially the new rear plate for the Perfect Effect kit with just this little bit of plastic on here that actually holds the new crotch plate in place on the rear end of it. And then there we go with the Transform DreamWave, and you'll notice that it is nicely detailed with some of the black paint, gold paint, and it's a dark plastic right in here. But if you really notice how the design work on that compares to the original crotch plate right in here, just the middle section where the gold paint is. We did it as a kind of way to match, and once again a little bit more intricate molded in detailing, and yes, original. So I don't know, they're both pretty cool. The crotch plate on both of them, pretty cool looking designs. Can't really, say too much about the Perfect Effect rear plate, just because it's an original piece that came with the figure. The rear plate that comes with the kit is very cool looking. So, it's going to end up being down to what you prefer. Alrighty, now we have the new back plate for the Transform, and this is a very cool design. Very cool, and they did a lot of planning with this, making this look like it was an actual kind of like spinal column here, which is very, very awesome. Nice gold paint, and you got some of the black paint up on the sides. Now you could always, if you wanted a little bit more detailed paint in here, you could always do that yourself if you know how to, paint like little tiny areas. And then you got the Perfect Effect kit, which is itself pretty freaking cool. I mean, it just like this other one, it holds in place really well. Same amount of stiff tabbing in or porting in, and you actually get the grays that match. You get the gold right here, you get black, and you get some red. Very cool design as well. It's more like back armor, which is actually, if you think about it, is actually kind of cool. I mean, he gets back armor here, and this other one has a very, very cool, like animalistic, spinal looking back piece, which I find both of them pretty freaking cool. Once again, I'll probably keep saying this, you'll probably keep hearing it, throughout. Sorry about that. It's all going to be based upon your own personal preference. Now, yes, so far the one kit didn't really happen to mention as much playability in their instructions or even the pictures online than what the other one did. So, I mean, that's pretty much that. I mean, as far as that goes, but I mean, you could always make your own playability for these guys if you absolutely want to. Now, one of the other things with these kits is going to be the hands. Now, this is completely and utterly based on which ones you actually prefer. Ah! Yep, that wasn't supposed to happen. He totally got weighted down right there, just from a simple movement. Ooh, jeez. Alrighty. Well, he's standing back up, and let me point at his hand again. Okay. Now, completely black. I know that the figures themselves have all completely black hands. This obviously is trying to match that as well as they can. And you see, you know, the three big spikes hanging up off of there. A little bit of design work in there too. And they are fully articulated hands. Oh wow, even that twisted right there. Okay. Okay. So, the hands are articulated. They don't have as many knuckle points as the Transform DreamWave kit does, because they just have that hinge there and this hinge here, and just the ball joint there, and then this right here. Just like I said, those are just completely black plastic right there. And then we have the Transform DreamWave, which does have some of that gold paint and gold plastic. It has the claws, which is done in the black plastic, and this actually has a little bit more articulation. If you saw both of my videos there, so these fingers do splay out. That is one more point of articulation than what the Perfect Effect kit has. And then they do have the hinge at the base, and then they got the hinge there and the hinge at the claw. So they have all three bending points in there, which is pretty cool. And then that's got the ball joint, and then it's got the hinge right here at the base and then at the knuckle. So it kind of has one more articulation point in the thumb than, you know, it really needs, because, I mean, you only got the 2 knuckles in the thumb instead of like the 3 knuckles for the fingers. But very nicely done with the spikes, which are actually a bit pointier than the Perfect Effect, and they're got a little bit more of an intricate design molded into them as well, which is kind of cool. And these ones does move up and down. The Perfect Effect sort of kind of moves up and down a little bit, but this one has more of a pivot point. So that's pretty cool. They both hands are fully functional, fully cool. I just I'll go over which bits I like more and which bits are, you know, in an okay kind of place, in which I think maybe they could have actually done maybe a little bit more painting or a little bit more design or whatever. But then you got the feet. It's kind of like a matte kind of gold paint on here. I mean, it's like a dull kind of gold paint. Can't really tell on the camera. It does have the shine. It does kind of make them look like they are lighter in gold than they really are, but they are actually quite darker in person than they are on camera. So it's actually more of what you're seeing over here in the shade compared to what is being seen in the light. And then you got your claws up on top of the feet right here, and you notice that the toes are more angled down, and I guess you could say that these are their version of the claws. And then you got the Transform DreamWave, which has much pointier and much longer claws, a little bit more realistic claws right there, and definitely more realistic looking dino claws at the fronts of the feet, and they actually have a much shinier and brighter gold paint for this part than the Perfect Effect does. And you'll definitely notice that they do shine a lot more in the light. I think it's just because that's just like straight up gold on the Perfect Effect, and they used like the metallic gold paint on these, which I actually prefer a shiny gold paint. Don't get me wrong, it's still a cool looking gold color, but it all has to do with your own personal preferences. Alrighty, so those were the main bits of this, and I might, instead of angling my camera up, I might actually just raise this up so that way it's a little bit more even with these guys, so I don't have to angle it up or down too far. Okay, now you will happen to notice that the upgrade puts the arms in kind of a higher position, and they are not equal front to back, like a real arm would be to someone's body. But you know, I mean, it's still cool. You know, it still gets the point across, you know, because, I mean, obviously, you know, the arm will still turn the way it's supposed to turn and rotate the way it's supposed to rotate. And it's not like the original, you know, combiner joints that just slide right in. You know, especially if you get it on a part of the combiner peg that actually goes in with friction, arm won't keep popping out on you. So I don't know if that was a slight bit of mismeasurement in the mold, or possibly slight mismeasurement in the combiner peg itself. And now we have the Transform DreamWave. Now this is a bit of a different configuration. They actually wanted to get the pegs a little further up towards the front of the body a little bit more. They are going to be a little bit farther front. I know it doesn't really, you know, sorry about that. I don't know, it doesn't really look like they could end up being a little further off, but the Perfect Effect back piece is actually pops out quite a bit farther than the Transform DreamWave one, from the back of the head. By a little bit. So they have brought the shoulder up a little bit higher and a little bit more forward. Now granted, it's not that much more forward, quite possibly. I mean, we'd have to actually take a look at the difference. I'll try to see if I can get them right. Volcanic is down right next to each other. Okay, you notice that that combiner port and then that combiner port in relation to that piece, you see it's right there at the edging. And then this one is just a little bit forward of that edging. So it's just, whoop, sword down. It's just it's really just like a fraction of an inch that they moved the shoulder points a little bit forward. And most of it has to do with just because of how the new arrangement of the combiner port itself actually comes into play. So it's kind of like a trick of your eyes kind of thing. And then you got the piece covering over where the Grimlock's hands would be. Otherwise you'd end up seeing it right through in there. But yeah, I mean, definitely brings it up to a higher point, given the effect that he has bigger, bulkier shoulders because he is supposed to be a dinosaur. So Dinobot Combiner, they tried to actually, you know, make it look like that, and then the perfect effect is actually just making it look like a normal combiner ports. So I mean that's really that right there. So I mean, yes, the perfect effect kit is a hair bit taller. I think that the Transform DreamWave one compensated for that by making him as beefy as they could get him. And then you have the combine mode sword. I will save a little bit more of what I was going to say until after that. It is a awesome combine mode sword. The one from Perfect Effect. You got the translucent orange plastic. You got some of the gray plastic. They do combine to make one big sword. And it is definitely bigger and wider than the one from Transform DreamWave, you know, because, yeah, I mean, please, it's huge. And then you got his, which does have nice detailing. They're pretty much the same kind of looking molded kind of sword. This one is painted and much smaller, much thinner, and quite honestly, it actually works with his body size a little bit better. But, you know, once again, it all comes down to how you prefer. You want the big, honking, giant sword that's pretty much as tall as Volcanicus himself, or the sword which doesn't combine, that the combiner would actually be able to use quite a bit more easily. Definitely would be able to swing the other sword easier than, you know, this one. This one would, you know, if you're thinking about like poses and stuff, this one is heftier. It can cause the arm to weigh down more, especially if you have any loose joints in your swoop, like I happen to. At least in that swoop. This one swoop is joints are a tad little bit tighter, but not by much. But overall appearance, I'd say, you know, they both get a 9 out of a 10. To be quite honest, they both look good. They both have good molding. Yes, one has better molding than the other. One's hand's a little bit more articulated than the other. They both transform into handguns. You know, the feet, different moldings on the feet, different styles of paint, different styles of feet guns. You know, playability is practically the same with those. More intricate back piece on here. More intricate, you know, piece right here and pieces there. You know, so they did a little bit more of a, Transform DreamWave did a little bit more of an artistic thing. You know, bulked him up, moved his shoulders up. You know, so that way his arms would have make it look like his arms have a little bit more free range of movement. Which, you know, I mean, kind of, you know, it kind of hinders a little bit right here with swoop at that combiner port right there. I mean, other than that, I mean, the arm moves, you know, completely fine. You know, it just... I mean, you can't really, you know, put them down anymore, like, even. But... And you can't really pop this piece down all the way, you know, just because it comes into contact with that combiner port right there. So, you know, I guess it is what it is. And, you know, he has the straight shoulders in and out. Pretty cool. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're both cool kits. It's all based upon your personal preference, whether you want to go for the slender, bigger, beefy, or if you just want to go for the wider, bigger, beefy. You want the plain colored hands. Maybe you want to mix and match, get, you know, both kits, and, you know, see if maybe you can mix and match them. Anything is quite possible. Now, the hip joints for the Grimlock is mostly going to end up being in robot mode, and the other thing for that is just so that way you get this wider stance at the legs. Now that's the other bit that is completely different. This one has a permanent A stance right here at the hips. This one, it pegs in place via the new crotch plate, and then there's another joint that actually straightens the legs back out again, which is one of the reasons why there is only a, you know, like maybe a ½ inch or less height difference between both Volcanicus. Volcanici? But once again, it's all based upon your own preference. You know, which feet you like better, which hands you think look better, which overall design looks better on playability. And I mean, you do get the extra swords, the completely black combiner sword for the Transform DreamWave. You do get the extra guns. I mean, this kit, you just get the combined mode sword, so it pretty much removes, like, the swords that came with them originally. This one you can keep using them, but you'd probably have to try and paint them to match if that's the way you want to go. So it really comes down to your own personal preferences. You know, I mean, if you still want to be able to use sludge as a leg, you might want to go for the perfect effect. You want to have to switch it out, so, you know, sludge is an arm and slag is a leg, then, you know, you might want to go for the transform DreamWave. You know, or if you like that chest more than you do that one, perfect effect. If it's the other way around, go for the transform DreamWave. If you don't care about the overall height, then go for the transform DreamWave. If you know, like the difference in the style, you know, if you like this one, like the back plate for this one over this one, or the other way around. See, that's how it comes down to. It's your own personal preference. I mean, even the waist joint. I mean, you know, I mean, this one is only a slightly, I mean, it looks like it's going to be, it is a teeny tiny tad, because, you know, you have to kind of like sometimes move the arms up out of the way because of the original combined mode hands. Just because those pieces are just sticking out quite a bit ways, so it can cover up those gaps at the sides. And then you got the waist articulation that really has no hindrance at all. Arms move freely, hip moves pretty freely, you know. I mean, both kits, if you really wanted to add more color or whatever, you can do that. You know, completely up to you. So, and like I do say, I mean, look how wide this kit makes him up at the chest. You can see how wide that is. And then you can see how much slender he is. But the overall appearance with all the extra pieces, with the more intricate molded in detailing, see, now that's why I slightly like those pieces on here a little bit better than the perfect effect. But I love both kits. And then, yes, this does have the pieces to make the thighs a little bit wider, whereas this one doesn't. Which, honestly, it didn't really need it. I mean, because they're putting all the bulk in the top half. Now, I mean, I think they mostly did that just to kind of equal out top to bottom. And so that way there was some more weight in the legs, so, you know, it didn't have an easy effect on going backwards, you know, with the combiner ports. But whichever one you will happen to enjoy the most, whichever one you think you'll actually get more playability out of, I'd say go for it. Now, both of them should possibly still be available, you know, online, tfsource.com, or bigbadtoystore.com, or wherever you might normally get it from. Maybe you get it from ages 3 and up. Maybe you get it from Robot Kingdom. You know, whoever you get it from. Whichever one you happen to like more, whichever one you think that you'll be able to get more play out of, I say go for it, because they're pretty equal kits as far as overall appearance and, you know, coolness looking, because they do both look really freaking awesome, you know. So until the next time, thanks for watching.